This show is sponsored by Realtor Cynthia Bear, Putting Down Roots. Visit your in-town real estate specialist in Atlanta at cynthiabaer.com.
You are now tuned in to the Good Gracious Show. Welcome.
Howdy, good gracious family. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019. Boyd Baker here. I've let you down, folks. Gotta say, I've been trying to do this weekly thing, and it's just crushing me. Got lots of projects going on right now, and I'm gonna get back on in line. But I think this is the third week, so I've just been kind of in the thick of this new project that you're gonna learn about. It's a documentary film. I'm doing the research and organizing and planning. And so it's taken a whole lot of my time, but I'm still recording. I'm still doing it. It's the editing. I got to be honest. It's the editing, the production of these things, which just takes a little more time, as those of you who play in this podcasting world, sound engineering world know. And this will be a perfect example of how it's tough to do it all and do it well, because I sat down with a couple of wonderful musicians and artists, and Alan Peterson and Glen DeMeritt, and my mic wasn't right. So you're going to hear in this interview, they're going to sound great, and I am not. So that is just the way it goes sometimes, right? But I also sat down with super funny, talented Amanda Rountree, who is an improv actor, a director, class educator, and we just had a good old time. She's a lot of fun. So I think you'll like Amanda. And she's got so I'm going to give you a little preview so that you can mark your calendar. So you got to go the second Sunday down to the Beltline, and you're going to see these musicians down there, and you're going to have to learn about it now. The other thing is Amanda is doing a show April 16th, I believe. She does this. You're just going to have to see. You're going to have to check out her website, and it's a really neat kind of improv setup where it's a little bit of a surprise on top of being an improv surprise. So anyway, I hope you enjoy.
Hey, I'm Alan Peterson. I'm a local artist here in Atlanta, artist, musician, and educator.
What's going on? This is Glen DeMeritt. I'm in Decatur, Georgia, and what I like to do is I like to play music. We like to teach, I like to write, and I like to share it with people and see how you like it. That's what I like to do.
When you say educating, Glenn, do you teach music, or do you teach like in a room with a door and a blackboard?
There's a whiteboard in there, yeah, and I teach privately, and I also teach at this school called Frank Hamilton School. Yeah, in Decatur. Oh, you've had has he been on here? Yeah. Really? Yeah. What episode is that? I got to check that out.
I don't know my numbers no more.
Yeah, how many shows have you had?
Well, I've got like 125 of these podcasts, so I can't remember.
Okay.
There you go. Slots in. It's kind of early. He and T-Dog came and talked.
Nice.
Your education, you're on a different plane than us normal.
I don't know about that. I teach at the university level, if that's what you mean, up at Kennesaw State. I teach art. So, I'm sculpture, 3D design, that sort of thing.
So that 3D design, that comes into play with why you're sitting here with me today, I think, because you didn't tell me, but I had to scour the internet to learn that you got a new project.
That's right.
What is it?
Well, it's called Paying Your Dues Fame Stage. The Paying Your Dues Fame Stage is a bicycle cart that I designed and welded that has a small...
Is it a bicycle cart or is it a tricycle?
Well, okay, maybe...
I can't tell.
I guess, yes, technically it would be a tricycle cart because it has 3 wheels.
All right. I think that's much more interesting. You should tell people, yeah, it's a tricycle. Musical tricycle stage.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
The last version had 6 wheels, didn't it? Or was it?
Yeah, so I did a version of this in 2014, thanks to the Beltline, the annual outdoor exhibition that is Art on Atlanta Beltline. At that point, I had a regular 10-speed bike, and it was pulling about a 4-foot by 8-foot, slightly smaller wooden cart, a 4-wheeled cart that resembled a tiny back porch stage with a railing and everything. But the idea was basically the same. The paying your dues fame stage refers to that it takes 2 musicians to operate the cart. We pedal slowly on the Atlanta Beltline, but the reason it's 2 musicians is one musician is playing on the stage and the other one is pedaling the cart ever so slowly for safety up and down the Atlanta Beltline. But the important part, the catch, is that the 2 musicians have to share the time equally so that anyone who plays on the stage also pedals the cart, and anyone who pedals the cart gets equal amount of time on the stage, so that there's no one person in service of the other, but it's...
So there's no real opener, maybe.
Exactly.
Depending on where you are on the belt.
I guess depends who pedals first, right?
Right.
And what's the opener? Is it to serve is to open, or is to play is to
I
open?
don't know. Yeah.
Right.
There you go.
And the way that most people are going to experience the cart is they're going to get... Right, yeah, they'll get an excerpt of the performance, and it all depends on who happens to be playing as we roll ever so slowly by.
But you might have some folks that decide they're going to jog right alongside you. They're going to skate or bike or whatever, and so they're going to get the full experience without paying their dues.
Well, no, if they're the audience, they can do whatever they like. We have had people accompany the cart for a short way.
Yeah.
Depends on how good you are, right?
A lot of times we'll stop and we'll have conversations, and we'll find connections, and a lot of people know the same people. It's just kind of wild.
So when you started, you did this 2014,
Right.
and why is it taking so long to do it again, man?
Well, the Art on Atlanta Beltline is all about new experiences all the time. They don't want the same thing out there every year. So, it took me several years of thinking about how to improve this, and then so I reproposed it for the 2018-2019 season. And so it's a better cart. Instead of having this wooden front porch thing, it's now a steel welded all in one piece. The pedal bicycle-like part is connected to the stage. The stage is sort of like a giant set of handlebars, if you will, like a taco cart or a popsicle stand type of vehicle. So that's a big improvement. Also, we've got a camera mount this time because documentation was a little bit of a problem the first time around.
Well, you could wear like a GoPro on your head or something, but then it wouldn't be the quality like.
It's, Glenn and I have run a couple of tests of the cart, and so there's a stationary camera mount for a GoPro, but it'll take, we've got another mic so that we get good quality audio.
It'd be fun if everybody, involved would have their own little GoPro. It'd be nice from the performer's perspective to have their GoPro. It'd be nice from the person pedaling's perspective to have a GoPro, and then there's a camera on the event itself, as the audience's perspective, and then probably play off those 3 little positions and create some pretty cool little content for these people.
You could. Yeah, you could even just put a single mount right between you and the performer, that stage. And then you just put 4 of them, just mount them up there in every direction.
Yeah, cut from one to the other.
Cut from one, you just get everybody, get all the experience. Well, so have we, well, I gotta ask you this, because it sounds, everybody goes, oh yeah, that's a great idea, that'd be easy. But then if you put the average Joe, even the average crafty Joe, in charge of this, he goes, wait a minute. Okay, this isn't just a bike pushing or pulling, this is a bike embedded in. So did you work with a bike shop or somebody, or did you just get crazy in your shop?
I got a lot of advice from various different bike shops. There's Atlanta Beltline Bicycles that is right there on the Beltline, close to the right there. And so I got some advice from the guys who were running that shop back in 2014, and then again in 2018 in November, when the first time that Glen and I went out to do a test run. They're good people. And then also I've gotten more advice from anyone else and more help, hands-on help from the SOPO Bicycle Collective. Yeah. They're, not too far from here at Moreland and Memorial, or just off. They're right by that mural of the cows and lions.
Nice. Well, but how did you do it? Did you just tear the front end off a bike and...
This time I did. Yeah, yeah. So I had to find a steel bike that's not, say, like aluminum or titanium or whatever they make bikes out of for lightweight. So it ended up being, I put the word out to my friends and neighbors, and in minutes had bikes they were willing to donate to the cause. Get this out from behind my house and you can have it. Yeah. So it's an old navy blue Huffy from the 80s. So yeah, I cut it up. The guys at the bike shop said, well, you might want to check and see if that's valuable. It was that old. Yeah. But no, it's just old. Yeah. No. So yeah, I continued to cut it up.
Did you make the cart first and then cut the bike to fit the cart? Was that
yes, I forget. I did a lot of online research to see what works and what doesn't.
Because there's obviously a million people making bike stages.
Well, bikes for various different things.
There's usually bicycles for carrying people around, or and there's I've seen bicycles with coffee shops on the front. I've seen so obviously they have bicycles with ice cream containers or whatnot.
So what's the maximum load, do you think, on the front end on the stage? Not that we're not shaming anybody, but do you think one person or maybe two little people is probably max?
We haven't discovered what the maximum load is. That would take breaking the cart, I think.
Well, we've kind of set a limit of, it's pretty much one person on the stage. If we find that's going to be an issue, we'll probably cross that path when we get there, but I don't know. I think it'll be fine.
No wrecks?
200, 250.
Everything smooth as silk?
Well, our first test run, it ended up with we discovering a new instrument. The back part of the cart was rubbing the tire, and it was sounding really pretty cool. And so we got that on video. We recorded that sound.
Percussive bicycle chain.
There you go.
So that was nice. That was a great discovery.
Did you work that out?
I'm working on that now. Because the mic is attached to the frame, the rubbing of the chain sounds pretty apocalyptic. Yeah. So we're doing our best to get rid of that.
Yeah, no, that was a nice discovery towards the end of the run, but, we saw it happening before we even started. That was part of, we were figuring out how, what the next step on fixing it was going to be, because we knew it needed attention. So
were you with Alan in 2014 on his maiden voyage as well?
I'm not on the maiden voyage, but I was a part of that whole thing. Yeah, we ended up doing that quite a few times together, and that was fun. It was a totally different beast.
Yeah. So you knew who to go to when you wanted to recreate this experience.
Yeah, exactly. So the first time around, I was recruiting various different musicians to be the other half of the partnership there, and so I knew Glen through his various musical projects, and I've been on stage with him before at that point, and so asked him to come participate, and he well, the idea obviously spoke to him. He got excited about it.
I loved it instantly. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea that I had hoped would happen finally, came to pass. That anyone who rides on it once to learn how it works firsthand, then can come back and be the lead for another.
So you don't have to be at every one. necessarily
Exactly.
more people share that stage. That's a
Right.
great idea. So how often will it take place? And it's part of the Beltline Arts program?
Right.
So what's the timetable?
Second Sundays from March until August. And,
Until the end of August?
well, till the second Sunday in August.
Second Sunday.
But those are the, we needed to pick a time that it'll definitely happen. And we're going to fit in kind of pop-up performances along the way as well. But when we were talking with the Beltline, we, they wanted and we wanted regular, recurring performance that we could promote, So second Sundays is the way.
Yeah, have you already got it all slotted? Who's going to be there, or are you just kind of starting to be picky now?
We've got some, but we've got openings still. So we'd love to talk with musicians who are into the idea.
Yeah, it's
Takes
like,
a certain kind of musician.
well, yeah, you got to be, not scared to try different flavored water. Put yourself out there, try something new.
You don't mind the outdoors. You can't
That's
get
it.
agoraphobic.
That's right.
Right, and I've talked to musicians who love the idea but have back problems or whatever and can't ride a bike. I'm not lying. So just today, and well, sorry, that's part of the deal. Is paying your dues is the pedaling part before you can get on, or in addition to the fame stage.
Or they demand an amplification, and then they need the green M&M.
Yeah, that's it. They'll start sending us their riders.
That's right.
But that,
Literally, you need to ride a different kind.
That's it.
But that's one of the improvements for this time. We've got a battery powered amp, so that we can plug someone in. We don't want a wall of sound exactly.
Yeah, but they have these real small little battery powered amps that are just perfect. They just barely get a little bit of. Yeah, it's sweet. I know.
Well, so let me ask you, Glenn, because Alan, you're partial, and you would not be a fair judge. Would you say that in 2014, the experience on the Beltline was like being in a Yugo, kind of rolling slightly in control? And then the new experience in 2019 is more like Cadillac?
Yeah, it's a Cadillac or Mercedes. We're going in that. Or maybe Hyundai. Maybe the next version will probably be more Mercedes and Cadillac. But this is pretty nice. This is an '80s, custom kind of thing. So. We've got to get a kickstand going so we get a little more balance when the mount and dismount action happens, and a couple little more safety features or whatnot. But no, this is definitely a little more of the Hyundais. It's the other one was a Yugo for sure. Anytime you went to step on the gas or put on the brake, it definitely you felt the momentum either way. There was a little pushback or playback or whatever you're going to call it, whiplash.
So now
Right.
going to be strapped in on this one just in case.
Yeah, if you've ever been to Disney World, you've seen the parade and they always have those wires on Mickey. We have wires for you, Mickey. So come on down.
That's cool. Well, so March through August, and it's the
Second Sundays.
Second Sundays, and you're calling it the
Paying your dues fame stage.
Fame stage, and it'll just look like a big crazy person or two wandering
Well,
down the
if you
Beltline.
see a bicycle cart
Yeah, with some
with musicians
There's not gonna be a
playing,
lot of competition out there.
Well, chances are that's probably us over out there. And if you find them, let us know. We'll take care of them.
That's right. So thanks for coming in, man. It's been great. So
Thanks
they can
so
find
much.
you on Facebook, right?
that's right. That's the best way to find sort of a video history of what we've done so far and what we'll keep posting as we get more our 2019 season, which is about to start. It's if you look up Paying Your Dues Fame Stage, then you'll go right to our Facebook page.
Yeah, and then we're going to be documenting the whole, thing as far as everybody on there and whatnot. Create us a little catalog,
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we've got some videos from the 2014 run, but that's one of the major ways that it's improved this time around is that the videos will be better and
Technology makes it easier these days.
yeah, more comprehensive.
And those second Sundays are the featured times as well. You know, we're definitely open to run at other times or whatever, but we just want to know that if those are those featured spots that we're going to kind of push towards.
All right. Well, thanks. Appreciate you guys coming in.
Thank you, Boyd. Thanks for having us. Well, this is called paint alcohol, and it refers to a period of prohibition when people were trying to drink paint thinner, industrial alcohol, until the federal government started putting poison in it to prevent them from getting drunk. That's the historical tie-in.
So this is an upbeat song.
Oh yeah, it'll tear your heart out. I drank that old paint alcohol, it's all that I could find. I drank that old paint alcohol, now I'm going blind. I prayed for heaven, prayed while crying bitter tears. Is heaven against me? I pray, but heaven don't seem to hear. If I had anyone to tell my troubles to, you know they'd understand. There's only one way that I can be happy, but heaven never give me that helping hand. So I drank that old paint alcohol, it's all that I could find. I drank that old paint alcohol, now I lost my mind. Glen, help me, help me. Woo! I drank that old paint alcohol, it's all that I could find. I drank that old paint alcohol, now I lost my mind. I drank for heaven, I prayed with all my might. If heaven's against me, what can I do that will ever turn out right? Dragged on down to the liquor store. They told me they were not gonna sell me anymore, so I staggered on over to the hardware store, open late every weekend, and I bought me some old paint alcohol. I drank that old paint alcohol, it's all that I could find. I drank that old paint alcohol, and now I know I'm dying.
Amanda Rountree. I'm a performer, teacher, and director of improvisational theater and of storytelling and of scripted theater and a writer and a puppeteer, solo performer.
I got a feeling this could go for a while. As you start digging back, you start remembering.
Right? Oh, yeah,
all
I've done that too.
Oh, yeah, I
like
was a
to take
mascot
pictures.
for something one time.
I'm really good at eating cookies.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Now that's a tough job to get, though, right?
Yeah, that's true. I should say I volunteer.
Yeah.
It's pro bono.
It's the pro bono work. You're just giving back. You're
Right,
just constantly
that's true.
giving.
Just enjoying everyone's cookies.
So, we were talking about all the different, calendar issues we have as far as jumping from this to that to the other. How do you find yourself where you are, Amanda? How'd you end up here?
How did I end up
Did
here?
you start off saying you wanted to be a teacher, and next thing you know, you're an actress and a director?
When I was 14, I took an improv class, and oh my gosh, it scared me so much. I was so nervous. I was such a little ball of nerves when I was a teenager, and thank goodness that I did it.
So then why would you take an improv class? Did your parents
Well,
push you
I
or something
wanted to do comedy. It made me nervous, but I wanted to do it. So with my cousin, Jody, we were about the same age. We grew up together, and we would do that thing that a lot of kids do, which is act out stuff. But we would do it over recording. We would take cassette tapes, take a little tape recorder, and we would create all these sketches, and we would
kind of like radio theater kind
exactly
of stuff?
Yeah. So we would just countless things. We would do voices and make up little comedy acts, and then we of course wanted to grow up and become famous and move to Hollywood and have Mr. T be our bodyguard. And we were going to marry identical handsome twins and live in the same mansion because,
Wow.
we wanted to be still friends.
Wow.
So that all worked out.
I think there's a Disney show. Yeah, there's a
Right?
Disney show right now
Yeah,
that has
right?
that.
There
somehow.
probably is, yeah.
Yeah.
So, so when I was 14, and this is in Louisville, Kentucky, where my hometown, and we found a place to take improv classes, and I remember it was on Friday nights, and it was downtown. And it started just before I went into freshman year of high school. So I was already a ball of nerves about that. But it was great. It changed my life. It made me who I am.
I mean, was it literally at the end of the class you were like,
I don't remember I don't remember the end of the very first class. I remember probably being relieved because I was so nervous beforehand. And
you survived it.
I remember that I was like, oh, that was really fun. That wasn't scary, but I was still nervous every week for a while before the class. And it's funny because now I have students, adult students tell me, and I teach kids and teens as well, but I have adult students who will tell me, I was so nervous. I sat in the parking lot every single day before I went into your class, and I had to talk myself into it. But every single day at the end, I was so happy that I did it, So yeah, this stuff changes lives, whether you want to be a performer or not.
Well, and people, they get, I think sometimes a little too into their head, and they put too much pressure on themselves to do something like taking a class, to learn.
Oh, it's very scary.
I mean, if you were telling them that they were going to go learn Spanish or to read poetry, they wouldn't have the same level of angst, most likely.
Yeah, you'd still maybe have a little bit of angst, but
Right.
you're able to hide it more than you are in an
Right.
improv class. It's a very vulnerable position to be in.
I heard an interview on Terry Gross, Fresh Air, and she was talking to an actress being on Saturday Night Live recently, and she said, she's been in plays and theater, musicals, movies, and she said that was the most terrified she's been in a long time. She said just behind the curtain, before the show begins, there's like this little setting. You're right up behind a door that comes in through the band, at the top of the stage. And she said she's standing there, and there's a woman. There's like a handler who's been there forever. And she's just holding her hand. She goes, "You're going to be fine. It's going to be okay." And she said, on the ground, she said, "Do you need the bucket?" And she said,
Oh,
"What?"
no.
She said, "There's a little bucket right there on the floor, right next to the door that goes out to the audience." And she said, "If you don't feel well," and she said, "Oh my,"
Oh,
she
gosh.
said, "I guess I almost think I could." And she said, "You would be amazed by who uses the bucket."
Oh, wow. Yeah.
She said, "It's just people, no matter who they are, at what level, they still get the nervous energy, the angst,
the adrenaline,
the
and
fight or flight. Maybe I should just leave. This is going to be
no.
horrible." Yeah.
Oh man, I have been very fortunate in that I've never had to use a bucket.
Yeah.
I will say that. I don't think I would have gotten this far if I was a bucket person.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky.
That is good. So you go from taking a class. Did that lead you down a path in college that you would be?
Yeah, so I fell in love with that. And then actually when I was still in high school, there was an audition for an improv troupe in Louisville, and I auditioned for it. And I think they just maybe were bad at saying no to me because they never said yes exactly. I just kept coming. And then after, I don't know, a couple of months of showing up every Sunday, I asked one of them, I was like, "Am I in?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, you're in." So, yeah, so I don't know how that happened,
Right.
but it was great. And so then I was 17 and I was performing in an improv troupe at a comedy club bar. So I was underage performing. They had to, they knew me at that club, but when we toured to like Indianapolis and Nashville and stuff like that, they would have to sneak me in because I wasn't allowed to be even in the building.
Right.
But then I could be on stage. And I wasn't like a person who was like really excited or interested in drinking anyway. So I didn't take the advantage that I had
Right.
over other 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't interested. But yeah, it was really fun to be on stage.
Gosh, quite an experience, though, at that
Totally
age.
weird. Yeah.
And I never would have thought that, you always think to become an actor or an actress to get into an official play that maybe tours or it does something else, but which would be a much smaller percentage chance. But then something like improv gives you the exact same kind of process. You get to travel, you get to ply your craft, and you get better and better.
Yeah, I will say that it was pretty bad improv, probably.
Right. Well, you got to make
but it
some
was-
bad stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. And at the time, this is in the 90s, in Kentucky, so nobody knew what improv was. We were.
You were making it up as you went along.
People would not. I remember there was one show that we were booked to do. It was like a private sort of performance, and when we got there, the people who had hired us stared at us and said, "Where are your instruments?" Because they thought that they had booked a jazz ensemble because they had heard improvisation.
Jazz, improv. Yeah. That is.
So there were a lot of weird things like that.
So what instrument did you play that night?
Right, kazoo.
Yeah.
My body. So like weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I was in school and I was taking theater classes, and but then I had an opportunity to do some theme park work where I dressed as a Star Trek character. So that involved improvisation and performing and lots of makeup and prosthetics.
Oh, my.
So I did that for a couple of years.
Where'd you do that?
That was in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so that was at Paramount's Kings Island.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know Paramount owned that.
Right? Yeah. Paramount has a few parks that they own. There's like King's Dominion, I think, in like Virginia or something. I don't know. But so, of course, because it's owned by Paramount, they have what they own. So they were able to have Star Trek.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what got you what got you starting the improv classes that you do, and what was there a special niche or something?
So when I moved to Seattle, I was living in Seattle and I was performing with a theater there. I was performing with two theaters, and one of the theaters I was performing with got a grant to teach improvisation to a residency at a school. And the way that the residency worked was we were teaching in pairs, and we had the exact number of people to be able to have however many groups we had. There were two of us. So just by default, I was teaching, but I had a teaching partner who knew way more what they were doing than I did. And I learned a lot. And one of the things I actually discovered was that I really enjoyed teaching, and that the other side of as much joy as one can get from performing and improvising, there was this whole other level of joy, being able to share that and being able to instruct and give the tools for someone to create that themselves. So then I just applied to some other teaching opportunities within the two theaters that I was working with. And I started with youth and teen, and then given the opportunity to do adult classes, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I just want to keep doing this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So then when I was in Chicago, I taught also at Second City and taught youth and teen and adult classes. And so I'm like, this is
So
what
your
I wanna
schedule's
do.
been jumbled for a long time.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
I've been an independent contractor for a while, and I've definitely had odd jobs. So
On top of that.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Whenever I needed, because it doesn't always pay very much money. So, I've walked dogs, and I've cleaned houses, and I've worked in photo booths, and I've worked in retail and restaurant work and warehouses, and I've done, I think the only thing I haven't done is fast food.
Huh?
I haven't worked in fast food,
Well,
but I've worked in restaurants, and I've worked at Chuck E. Cheese. So there's that.
I don't know. I think that's worse than fast
It is,
food on some
maybe,
level.
yeah.
I mean, visually and orally, it is just,
It's just
too much.
A lot happening.
Yeah, very much. Well, so then you move you move down here or back to your south, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then you just say you're going to hang your shingle and you're going to kind of do it all on your own?
Yeah, so my husband and I moved down here because he's an academic. So he got a position at a university, and actually he just made tenure, so now we're permanent, so hooray. So I've been freelancing down here, which has been really nice, and have met a lot of wonderful, amazing people.
The city's full of them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And so it's been pretty great. It's a first for me to be living in the suburbs, because that I have not done. Yet. I talk with my hands. Boyd is directing me to not talk with my hands because I'm messing with the microphone.
It's slapping, yeah.
So living not in the thick of it, so to speak, is
a little different.
I'm coming to terms with a little bit, but it definitely has its bonuses. But I kind of miss being like in the thick of
but
it.
you kind of have best of both worlds on some level, right? Because
That's
you're lucky enough that
true.
where you live, there's an artistic community that allows you some outlets. So
That's true.
then you can come in the big city, you can head
I
back
can do
out.
both. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just I'm spending more time in the car than I would like, I think, is the... So if MARTA would just
Get
extend...
all the
their
way through the
trains,
sate.
right?
All the way. That's
Right?
what they need to do. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah. So I got spoiled in Chicago, I think, with the public transit.
Yeah.
But yeah, Atlanta's a great city, and I love working in it and around it.
So when you do your classes specifically, do you have a focus on what that improv is targeted to do? Is it for beginning actors? Is it for people to release the stories they have? Or, I'm curious, the different levels.
Right now I'm kind of getting established more as a freelancer. So I haven't been promoting my beginning classes. I've been focused on master classes for improvisers. And then once I feel like I get it a little more established, I'll start to build. Because once I start doing my beginning improv classes, I want to be able to do the next level for them and to keep them there. And so right now I'm kind of teaching in a lot of different places. And until I kind of find one place to teach out of, I think it'll be easier for people to... At that point, it'll be easier for people to feel like, oh, now I can take classes, the beginning classes with this weird lady. So I've been doing a lot of master intensives and workshops and classes.
And what does that entail?
So it involves people who've had some improv experience, basically. And there's a lot of improvisers in Atlanta, and there's a lot of actors who have a little bit of improv experience, as you know, the Hollywood of the South. So I've been anybody who has at least base level experience or more. I have targeted classes specific for them, and so they work on a lot of different things. So I have an advanced scene study class that has an unfortunate acronym that I didn't realize when I first named it, but I'm sticking to it. I'm committing to this acronym, and it's great.
It's improv funny.
Yeah, right? Yeah, why not? And so that's a class. It's an 8-week class. I also teach it when I travel. I also teach it as an intensive. I was just in Phoenix recently teaching it. But it basically teaches the player how to perform a longer scene that is grounded and more sustainable. So
would that be more considered like long form improv?
Well, whether you do long or short form or mid form, this class can help just strengthen your tools as an improviser. But it would be so in the class. For the graduation show, I do a class, and everybody performs like a 10-minute 2-person scene, which does feel like more
Forever.
like a long-form set. Yeah, and when I say that at the beginning of the class, people are very scared, talk about first-day jitters. But by the end of it, the grad shows are always amazing. They're always incredible, and when people are given the time to trust themselves and to use... Because really in improv, your ingredients are yourself and your partner and your audience. That suggestion that you get and that energy that's there. And a lot of times improvisers don't trust one or more of those 3 ingredients. And a lot of times we start by not trusting ourselves. And so we work a lot on trusting our impulses and doing that in the class. So that's been really, really nice to watch.
So when you have that 10-minute piece, does it always start kind of with a location and object or a word? Is it that
we'll
kind
get
of
a
scene
suggestion
study?
from the audience. Yeah, we'll get a suggestion.
And
So
then
it's
two
totally
people just have to
improvised.
chew on that really hard
Yeah,
for
yeah.
10 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. And they've got those two other ingredients too. So it's not just the audience ingredient. They've also got my relationship to this suggestion, my relationship to my partner, how I'm feeling right now, all of those emotions, and then everything that is said or done is established history. Right. So then we can just play with that. So yeah, so there's a lot of I recently did like a 35-minute scene with a friend and a colleague in Phoenix where we got a location. And these are sort of like one-act plays in a way, right? But totally improvised.
Very ephemeral. Yes.
Yeah. So they're really nice.
So when you, and just out of curiosity now, so if you're doing a 35-minute piece that's improvised, would you go with a very vague just suggestion from the audience, or do you say we need to have characters, we need to have the locale?
I think I suggest usually just getting one suggestion, and I like to just get one, whether it's, and it's the first offer of the scene. So in improv, we talk about offers, and that's basically another word for an idea. So what is the first idea of the scene? Let's get that from the audience. And it does two things. One, it it proves, quote unquote, that we're improvising to the audience because our first idea was given from them. And then two, what it does is we start by not thinking, because improvisation is not about thinking fast. It's just about being in the moment and reacting. So then if we can start without thinking, we just get something and then we just say, I'm sure you've heard yes and. So then we just, yes and is just accepting and building. So I embrace this idea and I'm just going to build on it. So if you say airport, then okay, we're going to be in the airport and then we're just going to flesh out things from there. And there's a lot in that suggestion, right? There's so much to do. Or maybe you get an object, beach ball. And still there's a lot implied in that suggestion.
So there's no huddle or anything. It's just one of you decides to take on that topic and start the ball rolling.
Right. So we'll just take a suggestion, maybe an activity, what is an activity you might do in the summertime?
And I never really thought about it, but just now, as you said, thinking of a little play, is there always humor? Like when you teach, or do you find that that's just easier for people to kind of connect with?
I think it is easier. I think improvisation a lot of times tends toward comedy, but I think that trying to be funny is so painful. We all know that it's really tough to watch. We all know that person
when it's
in our
not
life.
Working, it's tough to watch.
Right?
Yeah.
We all know that person who, and I would argue that when you try to be funny, it rarely works. When it just comes natural, it's much more palatable. But the same goes for trying to be dramatic. That also is awkward and painful. So really, what it is just being honest and sincere and genuine in the moment with the suggestion and with your partner and with your own feelings. And if you're sincere with those, then whatever wants to be will be. And maybe you'll have some funny moments and maybe you'll have some dramatic moments. My favorite shows are when you're getting a lot of audience interaction, whether it's laughter or aw, or, just sort of a gasp,
Making that connection.
Yeah, for sure.
Which do you enjoy doing more? Do you enjoy the masterclass aspect or the youth or the beginner aspect of it?
Oh gosh, I love.
Or do they feed different parts?
It feeds different parts for sure. Yeah, the master classes are great because I get to be a little bit more of a director, and I get to sort of troubleshoot and see
it's more fine tuning things than necessarily.
I work with strokes. I have two. I have a class, an advanced scene study right now, and we're about to start our fourth class, so we're about midway through. And even the first day, they're so brilliant, there's so many great actors in that class. And so really it's about recognizing the little habits that they have occasionally that kind of hold them back, and just fine-tuning and kind of giving them some more tools, or giving them tools that maybe they had learned but they don't really are comfortable working with.
Or they hadn't revisited or refined.
And helping them with that, and being able to sit there and watch a scene and see what they're doing and be able to tell them, recognizing, like pointing things out to them of what they're doing, and then asking them, is this working for you? Is this not working for you? So they can make the connection for where they want to go on their path. And then teaching like a beginning improv is so great to be in the room when people have that release of when they start trusting themselves and when they release all of their inner dialogue that is censoring them and telling them you're not doing it right, and for them to let go and realize, oh, they do have all this creativity that's locked up inside. And to watch especially adults, to watch them play again, because we don't get a chance as grown-ups to play very often.
Right.
In fact, a friend of mine just sent me a message today saying he was in my original troupe with me back in Kentucky like 25 years ago. But he sent me a little message saying, I was just playing with my niece, or my granddaughter. He said, I was just playing with my granddaughter. And it struck me that how great of an improviser she is, just being a kid,
Yeah.
you know? And and adults, we don't get to play very often. So,
Well, you know, I would agree with you that we don't play, but we don't make time.
that's true.
I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a priority.
We've got
thing,
as
right?
many hours in the day as anybody,
Oh, yeah.
you know, but it's how you choose to use that time, right?
And you do a good job of creating play and creativity in this neighborhood. I feel like.
I don't know. I just create some kind of chaos, right?
Some kind of
If I
chaos,
can
yeah.
create a little chaos that gets people curious, then that's a good thing. It's not bad.
Yeah.
But I would think that teaching a master class, or at least when you first began teaching those, it could be a little bit, you know, you could have that same butterfly stress that, oh, they're all going to be so much better than me. And how do I have the authority to tell them? You know, I mean, I would think that sometimes
classes.
a lot of people
yeah.
don't think about that.
Yeah.
And teachers, professionals, they're constantly doing professional development.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you might be in a room full of some really, really great actors
Oh,
that you
sure.
feel like are above your pay grade, but you still have to step in and go, hey, that's wrong. Or
Yeah.
are you sure that's
and
where
it's
you're
not
going?
It's not even, and it's pointing out to them, you know, this is my particular style. So in this class, and I think as a teacher, we have to be just really clear with, these are the goals. So by the end of these 8 weeks, this is where I want you to be. And and I'm basically going to introduce 1 or 2 tools every week. And some of these tools are tools that people are very familiar with. I have students who've retaken that class 3 or 4 times, and they know that I'm going to go through and teach these tools, but they're like, you know me now, so give me specific feedback. And
Right.
is it okay if I work on X while we're learning Y? And I'm like, yeah, it's fine, because I know where you are, and I know that if we're working on this thing, but you also need to work on this other skill that you've been lacking, or that you just want to hone a little bit better. Yeah, go for it. You know, I have another class that's a scene doctor class where specifically I tell people, it's for improvisers, come in and tell me what your goals are as an improviser, and I will help you get that. So people can take it just one class, or people can take the entire 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But that sold out. That was really successful last time. And I think it's because people are really thirsty for individual feedback, you know?
Yeah. And more the troubleshooting, you know, and
Yeah.
a lot of times they go, oh, I got this thing,
I've got this
thing, but
and
I don't want to
it's-
sit through a whole
Yeah.
general. I want really the
I
specific.
want to work on this thing even while that guy over there is working on that other thing. And can we do that in the same space? Because as improvisers, you can't do a solo class.
Right.
You know, you have to be working with an ensemble to really
Yeah.
master
So when
it.
you do scene doctor, can you do that with a group of students, or does it have to be a larger
I keep the
room?
group smaller. I
Yeah.
keep it, so some of my classes I can have up to 18 depending on what we're working with, but with Scene Doctor I keep it to like 8 or 10 people, and we have a 3-hour class, and so we're just do 2-person scenes, and I have people email me their goals beforehand, so I know coming into the class what we're working on. But
how
I also,
you might put them together or anything else
right.
like that.
So
yeah.
I also know, like, oh, I can put these two, I can put these two together. We're working on the same thing, or these two are going to challenge each other's what they want to work on. So let's put them together. And the class is very supportive. I make it very clear up front that my job is the job of feedback and telling you what to change. And the job of everyone else in the class is to tell people what they liked about the scenes. Because when you're in that vulnerable position critique me.
Yeah.
It's also good to know what's working, you know. It's so, and there's so much that's working because, again, these people have been doing improv for a while, so they're going to be entertaining, you know, they're going to be engaging to watch. My goal is always excuse me, my goal is always to make it more play versus work. So I think in everybody's passion or occupation, there's times where it feels like, oh, that was easy. And then there's times where it feels like, oh my God, they don't pay me enough for this. So the goal, I tell people, you know, a friend of mine, John Wilson in Chicago, I taught with him for years. He always said, it's a play, not a work, you know. So I say the same thing. It should be. It should feel playful. So that's our goal. Because we're always, I work with so many people that are going to be entertaining no matter what. But my goal is for them to have fun as well, and not just us.
Well, you know, and I never really thought about it much. I know professional actors, I would assume the good ones, they continue their professional development throughout their career. They have coaches or they take classes and things. But I don't hear of that. And like what you're doing, I've heard of these things, but I never thought about how that informs your art in the fact that painters don't necessarily do that. Musicians don't necessarily do that. Lots of different elements of the arts don't. And I really feel like there's a missed opportunity for them to get feedback on what they do. You know, because as an artist, a lot of times you're very driven, but that doesn't mean you're right. And maybe some of your challenges of being an artist is because you're not getting honest feedback. You know, people go, oh yeah, it was a great show. Yeah, I loved that gallery. You know, there was never any, you know, it's kind of dark there, Bob. You know, I mean, and you said it was a Happy Times review. It didn't really feel happy. So, you know, I just wonder if there would be if there's a way that that more artists could connect with the concept.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's really difficult because
it's vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there.
Art is vulnerable. Right. You know, it's more than when you make something, it's really hard to disconnect you know, art is so personal. It's so personal. And so when someone critiques it, it's not, oh, you're critiquing this painting. You're critiquing my heart. You know, it's so very vulnerable. Something of value for me is especially when I occasionally I will direct and also be in an improv production of something, and it's so important when
it's
that
tough
happens.
To be on both sides.
It's really really tough, and so I sort of put it in when that is happening, I'm working with other ensemble members who are very very good. So that I feel confident that we can all sort of self-direct a little bit. So what I've settled on in the process of how to direct is at the end of every piece that we do, whether it's in rehearsal or in an actual show in front of an audience, we will do some self-feedback, and it's 3 steps. And I think it's one of those things, those crossover art things that, okay, this applies to my art. It probably can apply to other art, and actually it probably will extend to everyone's life. Like, this is an end of the day thing that I can do. But the 3 steps, the first step is, what did I enjoy? And the second step is, what did I appreciate, or what made me feel supported? And then the third is, what can I do better next time? Because with improv, it's gone. It's like a Zen painting in the sand art, right? That is then blown away. So we can't say, oh, I shoulda. We can't should on ourselves, but we can. But we know that we're going to go back out there again. So it's putting it into the present and the future of what can I do better next time.
It's putting it in a positive. I can make change.
I hope so. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's not about,
instead of beating yourself up on it.
Every single one of us could do something better, you know. And it's not, oh, I should have done this move,
right.
which will only give you nightmares about, you know, living in the past.
Well, instead of saying, you know, next time I think I would do this move.
Yeah,
you know, it's just a reframing, right?
And it changes. Oh, I should have
like
said this to her. Yeah, it changes. I should have said this to her to. Oh, next time I will be a better listener.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I think that's, you know, that's important. and all of that, we could all use in our daily lives. I saw that, what I just kind of mentioned, just diverting for a moment, that I had just remembered that I had been at an event. I'd never been anything like it before. Someone invited me to see a musician and give feedback.
Oh, wow.
And so it was in their basement, and there were about, 15 people, and some were artists, some were just art lovers, some were musicians, and some were just friends. And this person performed, and I believe the context was that they were working on a TED piece, and so they just wanted to put it out there and get some feedback. So it probably couched a little more of the personal art aspect that you're saying. This is more of a presentation.
Right.
But as it was done, it was pretty fascinating. This group of what I considered strangers, some knew each other through random connections, but this artist stood on stage and had a mic and did their thing, and then people would say, "Hey, why did you do that thing over there? It seemed like you were going down this line, and then all of a sudden it kind of jumped, and he'd go, well, it was because of this, this tonal thing I needed to get over here, and that was the only way I knew. But that's interesting. I wonder if there's a smoother way for me to make that." And they're like, "No, it was really cool. I just didn't know if it had the same connection, or were you trying to blend things?" And so you had those kinds of conversations. And so in like 45 minutes, I would guess, all the people in the room brought their own personal experiences and their own definition of what they saw, which sometimes were totally contrary.
Right.
But that musician couldn't see. And so it was fascinating just to watch him stand there and go, I never thought that's how it would be received, and that's kind of cool. I'm going to dig deeper. Or, okay, I need to pull that back because I'm trying to get here instead of there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like you said. It was, he was very vulnerable in theory. Obviously, he was open to it, but the room just naturally embraced that vulnerability in some ways and said, I got to be honest, I didn't get that part, or I didn't dig it, but this other thing you did, I think if you took that somewhere, that would be really cool. And so, he got like the best free workshop ever that he could turn around.
Because he was open to it.
Because he was.
It'd be a very different workshop if he was a different person and was doing it for his ego and was like, I just want to get compliments. Because then that person is not open.
Right.
But it takes a certain amount of comfort and experience to...
But that's what improv is every time.
Yeah.
You're just stripping off the skin and going out there and say, please don't hurt me.
Lots of vulnerability. Yeah. If it's, and there's a lot of improv out there that avoids that. And maybe the lay person is like, I don't know why I didn't like that show. But I didn't identify with it.
Do you think that's sometimes just by the structure or the typical transitions that people are used to seeing in improv that maybe makes it less impactful, or do you just think it's random moments?
What do you mean by that question? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, you say something could be maybe less impactful than someone would hope. Maybe it's because you're using the standard conventions of what improv or what people are used to seeing, or, like you're trying to match expectations rather than create something.
Yeah, that's true. Anytime you're trying to meet an expectation, I feel like, as opposed to just responding sincerely in the moment, because then you don't know where it will go, and just trusting that, then you're going to go to a place that's not as improvised. Yeah. But if I'm fully, to use the metaphor, going to jump off the cliff and build the plane on the way down, as opposed to, I have all these plane parts that I'm going to jump with.
Right.
You just kind of have to figure it out with whoever you're jumping with, including the audience. And they really get a kick out of feeling like they're part of it, right? Yeah. And we can tell as an audience, right? If there's somebody on stage who is thinking and then they say what they've conceived in their head, it's a very different feeling, and it comes across very differently than when they respond in the moment organically at the same time that the audience feels like they're responding to that moment, right? And then if you're sitting in the audience and they say or do what you would have said or done, or what you're feeling, they feel like they're kind of on stage in a way. They're drawn in and engaged in that way. Whereas if you spend some time to try to conceive of something that is way more clever and original, really funny, or really dramatic, poignant, then it's missed the moment, right? And it's going to feel contrived. Yeah.
So good. Well, we were talking earlier about how you engage with some professional development, for business folks to use improv. How do you find that you're teaching in those ways? How different is that from teaching actors and improv folks?
So they have very specific goals. Usually the corporations, when you're going in to facilitate something, and they're restricted in a lot more ways, and you're coming into their place of work, which is not the traditional place where they get to let loose and play and be creative, but they're having you come in because they can't afford to not let loose and not be creative anymore, because they need
they need a jump start or something, a spark.
Or sometimes they need people to loosen up and connect with one another, because they're missing each other, and there's no communication. I'm talking with my hands again. There's no communication there. So it is quite a bit different. So there has to be a little bit of stripping away of the status that is already intrinsic to coming into a workplace. There's stripping away of that hierarchy. And
I would think that first time you go in, it's like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to teach them how everything goes. But if you're revisiting them and they've already been through once before, you get some historical knowledge where everybody's a little more.
And the other thing that you're competing with when you go in especially that first time, is the mythology and lore and stereotypes of improv. Because now people know it's not the mid-90s in Kentucky anymore. Now people know what improv is. And if they know that you're going to have an improv team building, people are like, oh God, they just expect the worst. And they're thinking of, the funny sort of satire of it on like The Office and stuff, and like, oh, I got to do this thing, I'm going to play freeze tag or something. But really, it's a lot more inclusive of that. We don't have people perform for each other. We're doing things simultaneously in a group, and it's a lot of, we'll do one little small exercise that maybe feels like a parlor game, and then we'll debrief and we'll ask them, how does this apply to your work? Because that's the other thing. When I'm teaching a masterclass in improv, I'm sort of an expert in improv for as much as I can be. It's what I know the most. I spent most of my life doing it now. But when I'm walking into another business, I am not the expert. I'm the expert in improv, but I'm not the expert on how to apply their improv to this particular business, because I don't know what they do day in and day out.
Right.
So I have to ask them, how would you apply this? And then based on what they say, I know, oh, well, then I have to give you more of this thing, or, oh, you need less of this thing. So let me go to this other side. Yeah.
Well, so what groups do you work with in and around town? Can you give me an idea of who you're teaching these classes through, or are they just through your...
Yeah, so I freelance. So my website is amandarountree.com, and then I gave you a shirt. It's Amanda Rountree and Friends. And so when I do my shows, I basically feel like, oh, it's me and my friends. And when I'm not there, it's my friends. So they're doing stuff without me. But yeah, so that's sort of the umbrella that it's at. And I've taught at I kind of rent my own space and teach all around, and also rent my own space and perform. And then I work with companies, like I mentioned, I work with Brave Space for corporate work. And I've worked with Do More Improv for corporate work. And yeah.
How do you balance that stuff for creating your own art? If you want to be a writer, some people need very dedicated time and space to create those things. If you're directing something, then you're also doing a class and you're doing this. Do you find your passions lie in those more active spaces, and then you can just write when you get a chance, or do you really carve out time?
That's a good question. Truth be told, I have not written in a while. Actually, that's a lie. I journaled this morning, and I hadn't journaled in a long time. I used to be a very dedicated journaler, but yeah, I haven't. usually if I have a deadline, if I have deadline is kind of a businessy way to say it. If I have a project that is coming up, I will procrastinate, and then I will write
At the very last minute.
Yes.
Pull an all-nighter, just
exactly.
like you did in school.
Yeah. And I haven't had that many writing projects. I've done 2 one-woman shows, but those were both when I lived in Chicago. I thought of doing another one.
I was going to say, have you not wanted to create, or do you just get that idea and you go, "Oh, that'd be really fun," and then you're like, "Well, busy. I want to do something else."
Yeah. So I haven't. I've written some things about what I think my next show would be about, which is definitely living here and as I mentioned before, my relationship with living in the suburbs. And so I've written several pieces kind of in and around that, which is how my other one-woman shows started. I was just kind of writing in and around a theme that just I was processing at the time. But I haven't found a director yet. So, and also there's another part of me that knows as soon as I find a director that I'll have more homework. So I think that there's a part of me that's reticent to start because I'm doing a lot of other projects right now that have been really fun. Yeah. And doing more directing of straight up scripted plays has been really fun. Yeah. So
do you find that it serves a different part of your creative soul, that you enjoy the structure of a normal play?
I do. Yeah. It's really nice because I do so much improv and I do so much directing improv that it is working.
It's nice to
another
have
muscle.
Parameters.
Yeah.
So you can really dig in and not have to worry about where it's going.
I don't have to worry about the words,
right.
Which is nice because in improv I try to tell people don't worry about the words because it really is the last ingredient. You can have an entire play without speaking, but you can't have an entire play without emotion. Yeah. And so many improvisers, we forget that and we get on stage and we're like, oh yeah, I need to talk and say something funny. Yeah. And then we forget the emotion. So it's been nice to work with scripted plays where the words are there and we can just, use them. But I use a lot of improvisation in my directing.
Even in your directing, yeah. Well, thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I'm sorry I talk with my hands so much.
No, you did fine.
Okay.
It's just when you touch your fingers, it's the vibration that goes through the table, it goes through the elbows into the IKEA.
Into the IKEA.
The IKEA
That's right.
then brings its own voice into things.
So in a way, I am speaking Scandinavian.
Yes, but I know how to spell all the words you're speaking.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Boyd, and thank you for the work that you do here in this neighborhood.
My pleasure.
Hooray.
Well, that's it for another Good Gracious Show podcast. Hope you had a good time. Hope you go check out those guys down on the Beltline and go see Amanda and, sign up for an improv class, maybe. She also does some true story classes, really interesting stuff, and a nicer person you couldn't meet. So you can check more podcasts online at goodgracioushow.com. You want to become a sponsor? Give me a shout. I'm also doing a live show coming up at the beginning of May. I'll have more details next week. I'm hoping next week at the next podcast. So, check it out. Otherwise, be a good neighbor, hug someone, and we'll talk to you next week.